She hadn't eaten in 3 days. The last piece of bread in her hands was all she had left to survive. But when she heard the weak cry of a starving wolf pup in the pouring rain, she gave it everything without hesitation. What she didn't know was that the tiny wolf she saved wasn't ordinary. It was the missing heir of the Alpha King. And that single act of kindness was about to change the fate of an entire kingdom forever. The rain had not stopped for 7 days. It fell without mercy, turning narrow village paths into rivers of mud and washing away what little hope remained in the forgotten settlements along the northern border of the kingdom. Gray clouds swallowed the sky from dawn until night, making every hour feel cold and endless. The wind howled through broken rooftops like a lonely spirit searching for someone who had long since disappeared. Trees bent beneath its strength, their branches stripped bare by the cruel arrival of autumn. This was a place where no royal messenger ever visited. No soldiers came to protect. No merchants came to trade. Only hunger came faithfully every morning. Among the scattered wooden cottages stood one that looked ready to collapse with the next storm. Its roof leaked. Its chimney no longer carried smoke because there was rarely enough wood to light a fire. That tiny cottage belonged to Rowan. She was only 22. Yet grief had already placed years upon her gentle face. Her clothes were stitched together more times than they were original. Her boots had holes beneath the soles. Rainwater soaked through them until every step became colder than the last. Oh, she never complained. She simply kept walking. Years ago, Rowan had belonged to the Moonbrook pack. She had laughed with the other children. She had believed she would someday find a family. She had dreamed beneath the same stars everyone else admired. But dreams rarely survived inside cruel hearts. Everything changed on one terrible winter night. A fire swept through part of the village. Homes burned. Lives were lost. No one ever discovered how it had started. Someone needed someone to blame. And Rowan, the quiet orphan with no parents to defend her, became the easiest answer. No trial. No proof. Only whispers. Only accusing eyes. Only cold silence. They called her cursed. Some believed bad luck followed wherever she walked. Others refused to look into her eyes, convinced misfortune could spread like disease. Eventually, no one spoke to her at all. She wasn't officially banished. Something even crueler happened. She became invisible. Every sunrise followed the same painful routine. Rowan wandered deep into the forest searching for herbs hidden beneath wet leaves. Some days she collected healing flowers. Some days mushrooms. Some days nothing at all. When luck favored her, elderly villagers secretly paid a few copper coins for medicine or repaired clothing. When luck abandoned her, she simply went hungry. She had learned not to expect kindness. Kindness usually demanded payment. And Rowan had nothing left to give. Smile. She still smiled whenever she helped someone, even those who refused to thank her. By late afternoon the rain became heavier. Her stomach twisted painfully. She had not eaten properly for nearly 3 days. Inside her small pocket rested only 2 worn copper coins, the last money she owned. She stood outside the village bakery. Warm light escaped through the windows. Fresh bread filled the air with a smell almost painful to breathe. Children laughed inside. Families shared meals together. For several long moments Rowan simply stood beneath the rain, watching, remembering what warmth looked like. Finally the elderly baker noticed her. Without speaking, he handed over the smallest loaf remaining on the shelf. It was old, slightly hard, worth almost nothing. Oh, Rowan. It looked like a feast. She smiled softly. Thank you. The baker avoided meeting her eyes. Not because he hated her. Because everyone feared being seen helping the cursed girl. Rowan understood. She always understood. Rather than returning home immediately, Rowan walked toward the old forest trail. There was a fallen oak tree overlooking a narrow stream. It had become her favorite place. Nobody visited it anymore. Nobody chased her away. She sat beneath its shelter while rain tapped gently against the leaves overhead. Slowly, she unwrapped the precious loaf. Steam no longer rose from it. But it still smelled wonderful. Her hands trembled slightly. Not from the cold. From hunger. She closed her eyes. Whispered a small prayer. Then reached for her very first bite. Suddenly, a tiny sound floated through the storm. Whimper. Rowan froze. She listened carefully. Only rain. Only wind. She shook her head and lifted the bread once more. Then, cry. This time she heard it clearly. Weak. Fragile. Barely alive. Or something. Needed help. Without hesitation, Rowan placed the bread back into its cloth. Her own hunger no longer mattered. She followed the sound through dripping bushes and tangled branches. Thorns scratched her hands. Mud clung to her boots. The crying grew weaker. Almost silent. Finally, she pushed aside a cluster of soaked ferns. Curled beneath tangled roots, lay the smallest wolf pup she had ever seen. Its silver-gray fur was soaked flat against its tiny body. Its ribs showed beneath its skin. One little paw trembled uncontrollably. Its breathing came in tiny painful gasps. Its bright blue eyes struggled to remain open. The poor creature couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. It wasn't dangerous. It wasn't wild. It was simply starving. Rowan slowly knelt beside the frightened little animal. The pup tried to growl. Only a tiny squeak escaped. It was too weak even to defend itself. Rowan's heart broke. Oh! You've been alone. She gently reached into her cloth bundle. The loaf rested inside. The only food she owned. She gave it away. She would have nothing. Nothing until tomorrow. Maybe longer. Her stomach growled loudly. For one brief second, she stared at the bread. Then looked back into the pup's frightened eyes. There was never truly a decision. She smiled. You need it more than I do. Carefully she tore off the first small piece. The pup sniffed weakly. Then slowly ate. Another piece. Then another. Soon tiny eager bites replaced fearful hesitation. Rowan laughed softly through tears. Easy. No one's taking it away. Piece after piece disappeared until nothing remained. Not even a crumb. The little wolf finally sighed. Its tiny tail moved once. Then twice. For the first time. It looked safe. Thunder rolled across the mountains. The storm grew even worse. The wolf pup tried standing. Its tiny legs immediately collapsed. Rowan quickly lifted it into her arms. It weighed almost nothing. Like holding a feather wrapped in wet fur. She removed her own worn cloak. Wrapped the pup tightly inside. Then hurried toward an abandoned stone bridge she often used during storms. Water rushed beneath it. Cold wind whistled through broken stone arches. But at least it was dry. Rowan gathered fallen branches. Lit a tiny fire after several difficult attempts. Its gentle warmth filled the dark shelter. The little pup curled against her chest. Its heartbeat remained weak, yet steady. Rowan softly stroked its ears. It's all right. You aren't alone anymore. The pup slowly closed its eyes. Moments later, fell asleep. Night settled over the wilderness. The fire crackled quietly. Rain continued falling beyond the bridge. Rowan leaned against the ancient stone wall, exhausted beyond words. Sleep slowly pulled at her eyes. A howl shattered the silence. Long. Powerful. Nothing like ordinary wolves. Another answered. Then another. Soon dozens echoed across distant mountains. The sound carried impossible authority. Almost like an army speaking with one voice. The little wolf suddenly lifted its head. Its ears twitched. For one heartbeat. Its blue eyes flashed with an unusual golden glow. Just as quickly, the light disappeared. The pup snuggled closer against Rowan, choosing her warmth over the mysterious calls echoing through the darkness. Rowan smiled sleepily. I guess they aren't your family. She had no way of knowing. They were. Far beyond the mountains. Elite royal wolves raced through forests under the command of their fearless Alpha King. Hundreds of warriors searched every valley, every river, every cliff, for one missing soul. The young prince, future heir to the kingdom, missing for 3 endless days. Hope faded with every passing hour. Yet none of them imagined. The child they desperately searched for was sleeping peacefully inside the arms of a forgotten girl who possessed nothing except kindness. Morning finally arrived. The storm had ended. Golden sunlight slipped through clouds for the first time in days. Rowan gently opened her eyes. The little wolf still slept peacefully beside her. She smiled, then noticed something strange. Outside the bridge, fresh paw prints covered the damp earth. Not ordinary tracks. Every footprint shimmered with soft golden light, as though sunlight itself had become part of the ground. Rowan stared in complete confusion. She had never seen anything like it. Neither had anyone else, because no ordinary wolf had ever walked with golden footsteps. The first rays of morning spread across the mountains, but they brought no peace. Mist drifted through the ancient pine forests while cold wind carried the scent of rain across the kingdom's northern borders. Every road, every valley, and every hidden trail echoed with the pounding hooves of royal horses. The search had entered its 4th day. No one dared speak the words everyone feared. The future alpha of the kingdom was missing. At the front of the enormous search party rode the Alpha King himself, King Kaelen, a ruler whose name alone was enough to silence entire armies. He sat upon his massive black stallion, wearing dark steel armor marked with the silver crest of the Moon Kingdom. Rainwater still clung to his long black cloak, but he paid no attention to the cold. His piercing silver eyes never stopped scanning the endless forest. Every passing hour deepened the worry hidden behind his calm expression. A father was searching for his only child. Not even the strongest king could hide that pain forever. Around him rode hundreds of elite wolf warriors. Normally they spoke confidently during long journeys. Today, no one said a word. Every soldier understood the danger, not because enemies surrounded them, because their king had become dangerously silent. His silence frightened them more than his anger ever could. Finally, Commander Darius guided his horse closer. "My king," he said carefully. "Our scouts searched the eastern valley before sunrise." Kaelen never looked away from the forest. And no sign of the prince. Silence returned. Several more moments passed before the king finally spoke. "Search again. We already have, your majesty. Then search until the forest itself grows tired of hiding him." His voice remained calm. Yet every soldier immediately urged their horses forward. No one questioned another command. Only 4 nights earlier, Prince Lucian had been traveling with a small royal escort through the sacred moon forest. It should have been a peaceful journey. The forest was protected by ancient magic older than the kingdom itself. Nothing dangerous had entered those woods for generations. Without warning, a thick black mist appeared between the trees. The horses panicked. The wolves began growling. Shadows moved where no living creature should have existed. Within seconds, chaos erupted. When the darkness finally disappeared, the royal guards lay unconscious. The prince was gone. No footprints, no scent, no sign of struggle, only silence. It was as if the forest itself had swallowed the child. Since that moment, the Alpha King had not rested. He had barely eaten. Sleep had become an impossible luxury. Finding his son was all that mattered. Miles away from the royal search party, Rowan slowly walked home through the quiet forest. The tiny silver wolf padded beside her. Its steps were still unsteady, but every hour it seemed a little stronger. Occasionally it stumbled into the mud. Each time Rowan smiled and gently picked it up. "You really are determined." The little wolf responded with a tiny bark. Its bright blue eyes sparkled with growing curiosity. Whenever Rowan stopped to collect herbs, the pup sat nearby watching her every movement. Whenever she crossed a stream, it carefully followed. Whenever she smiled, its little tail wagged happily. It had decided. This human belonged to it. And it refused to leave her. By afternoon they finally reached Rowan's tiny cottage. The old wooden door creaked open. Inside waited the same simple room. One narrow bed. One broken chair. Small fireplace. Nothing more. Rowan gathered dry branches from beneath the roof and carefully lit a small fire. Orange flames slowly filled the room with warmth. The little wolf immediately curled beside the fireplace. Its wet fur began drying. For the first time since Rowan had found it, the pup looked peaceful. She filled a wooden bowl with fresh water. The tiny wolf eagerly drank every drop. Then it looked up at her. Those brilliant blue eyes seemed almost grateful. Rowan laughed quietly. I wish I had something more to feed you. The pup gently rested its tiny head against her hand. It didn't seem to care. Being safe was enough. Later that afternoon Rowan visited the marketplace hoping to trade herbs for food. The little wolf followed close behind. People noticed immediately. Whispers spread through the village. Isn't that the cursed girl? Where did she find that strange wolf? It doesn't look ordinary. Stay away from it. An elderly woman stepped into Rowan's path. You should leave that creature in the forest. Rowan looked down at the pup. It would die. The woman frowned. Some things are meant to die. Rowan's eyes softened. Not while I can still help. Without another word she continued walking. The villagers watched silently. Some shook their heads. Others simply stared. None of them noticed the unusual silver glow hidden deep inside the pup's eyes. As evening approached, Rowan collected firewood near the edge of the forest. She never realized. She wasn't alone. High among the trees, two enormous gray wolves watched every movement. Their golden eyes remained fixed upon the tiny silver pup following beside Rowan. One wolf lowered its head. The scent. It belongs to the royal bloodline. The second wolf narrowed its eyes. But why is the prince with a human? Neither understood. Neither dared approach. Does it? They disappeared silently into the darkness, racing toward the Alpha King. Hours later the royal scouts reached the same forest clearing. The wolves sniffed the ground carefully. One suddenly froze. I found him. Commander Darius immediately climbed down from his horse. The scent was unmistakable. Prince Lucian. Alive. Healthy. Blows. But something else puzzled every scout. Instead of fear. Instead of blood. Instead of panic. The prince's scent carried warmth, comfort, trust, and another unfamiliar scent. A human woman. Commander Darius frowned. Impossible. The prince has chosen to stay with her. No one answered. Because such a thing had never happened before. Royal heirs trusted only members of their own bloodline. Somehow, the missing prince had formed a bond with a complete stranger. Far away inside the royal palace, another man received different news. Lord Malric, the king's oldest advisor. The kingdom believed he was loyal beyond question. Few knew the darkness hidden beneath his polite smile. A messenger knelt before him. My lord, the prince has been found. Malric slowly closed the ancient book resting on his desk. Alive. Yes. And the woman. A village girl. For a brief moment, Malric smiled. Not with happiness. With calculation. So. The child survived. He stood and walked toward the palace window. Rain tapped softly against the glass. Prepare the next phase. The messenger lowered his head. What are your orders? Malric's voice became cold. Watch the girl. If she becomes a problem. His eyes darkened. She must disappear before reaching the palace. The messenger quietly vanished into the shadows. Malric remained alone. His carefully planned conspiracy was beginning to change. And Rowan, without realizing it, had just become part of it. That night another gentle rain began falling. Inside the little cottage Rowan sat beside the fire. The tiny wolf rested comfortably in her lap. She gently stroked its soft silver fur. Without thinking, she began singing. It was an old lullaby, one she barely remembered from childhood. A melody her mother had once hummed before illness stole her away forever. The room filled with quiet warmth. The little wolf slowly closed its eyes. Its breathing became calm. Hidden among the trees, royal scouts listened in complete silence. Even the wolves beside them stopped moving. Commander Darius watched through the darkness. "I've never seen the prince this peaceful." Another scout nodded. "Neither have I." Before midnight, the Alpha King finally arrived at the edge of the forest. Commander Darius stepped forward. "We found him, Your Majesty." Kaelen's silver eyes brightened for the first time in days. "My son. Alive." The king released a long breath. "But," Darius hesitated. "He refuses to leave the side of a human woman." For the first time, the Alpha King's calm expression changed. Surprise, then curiosity, then concern. He slowly looked toward the distant glow coming from Rowan's tiny cottage. "Is it?" His son slept peacefully beside a woman the kingdom had never heard of. Nearly 300 royal soldiers silently surrounded the forest. None of them realized the coming sunrise would change not only Rowan's life, but the destiny of the entire kingdom. The first light of dawn barely touched the treetops when Rowan awoke to an unfamiliar sound. Heavy footsteps, metal clinking against metal, the soft snorting of horses. She slowly opened her eyes beneath the old stone bridge and immediately felt the tiny silver wolf stir beside her. The little pup lifted its head, its ears twitching nervously as if it sensed something long before Rowan did. A strange silence settled over the forest. Even the birds had stopped singing. Rowan carefully wrapped her worn cloak around herself and peeked beyond the bridge. Her heart nearly stopped. "Peasants, no." Hundreds of armored soldiers stood among the trees. Silver armor reflected the pale morning light. Long spears pointed toward the ground, while enormous wolves stood beside their riders with sharp golden eyes watching every movement. Royal banners fluttered in the cold wind. The crest of the Moon Kingdom. Rowan's breathing became uneven. "What?" Before she could finish, the tiny wolf quickly hid behind her legs, pressing against her ankles. It wasn't growling. It wasn't trying to attack. It was frightened. Somehow, it was asking her for protection. Commander Darius slowly raised one hand. Immediately the soldiers stopped advancing. No swords were drawn. No arrows were aimed. Yet the sheer presence of the royal army was enough to make Rowan's knees weak. She had never seen so many warriors in one place. The commander stepped forward. His deep voice echoed through the quiet forest. "Young woman, we seek a wolf cub." Rowan looked down at the trembling little pup. She understood instantly. "They're looking for you." The pup pressed even closer. Commander Darius noticed everything. His confusion deepened. The prince should have rushed toward the royal soldiers. "Is it?" He refused to leave Rowan's side. The commander had witnessed countless wolf bonds throughout his life. None resembled this. News spread quickly through the nearby village. People abandoned their morning chores and hurried toward the forest. Within minutes, dozens of villagers stood watching from a safe distance. Whispers filled the air. "It's Rowan. I told you she was hiding something. She stole a royal wolf. They'll execute her. No one survives after stealing from the crown." The cruel words reached Rowan's ears. She lowered her head. Part of her expected this. People had always believed the worst about her. But one thing surprised everyone. She didn't run. She didn't beg. "Is it?" She gently lifted the frightened wolf into her arms. If punishment was coming, she would face it without abandoning the little life she had promised to protect. Everything became silent. Even the wind seemed to disappear. The soldiers immediately lowered their heads. A path opened through the middle of the royal army. From between the towering pine trees emerged a magnificent black stallion. Upon it rode the Alpha King, King Kaelen, His black cloak flowed behind him like midnight itself. Silver armor gleamed beneath the morning sun. His long dark hair moved gently with the breeze, and his piercing silver eyes carried both incredible strength and unimaginable sorrow. Beside his horse walked an enormous black wolf. Its shoulders nearly reached the king's waist. Its golden eyes glowed like fire. Every villager instinctively stepped backward. Some fell to their knees. Others lowered their heads without being ordered. No one dared look directly at the ruler. Except Rowan. Not because she was fearless. Because she was too overwhelmed to remember fear. Kaelen slowly climbed down from his horse. His eyes immediately found the tiny silver wolf in Rowan's arms. For 4 endless days. That was the face he had searched for. His son. His heir. Alive. A father wanted nothing more than to embrace his child. He took one slow step forward. Then another. The soldiers smiled quietly. Surely the young prince would run toward his father. Something impossible happened. The little wolf buried its face deeper against Rowan's shoulder. Its tiny paws clung tightly to her cloak. It refused to move. An uneasy silence spread across the clearing. No one breathed. Commander Darius stared in disbelief. The royal guards exchanged confused glances. This had never happened before. King Kaelen knelt several feet away. His powerful voice became surprisingly gentle. Lucian. The tiny wolf lifted its head. Its blue eyes met the king's silver gaze. For one hopeful heartbeat, everyone believed the prince would finally return. The little pup jumped from Rowan's arms, only to circle behind her. Stood there protectively. Teeny. Fragile. Yet determined. It looked toward the king, then back at Rowan. Almost as if it feared someone might take her away. Gasps echoed throughout the crowd. Even the enormous black royal wolf tilted its head in confusion. The prince is protecting her. No one had ever witnessed such a bond. Kaelen slowly looked toward Rowan. She expected anger. She expected accusations. She expected prison. The Alpha King studied her quietly. He noticed her worn clothes. Her muddy boots, her tired face. He saw scratches covering her hands from gathering herbs. He saw hunger hidden behind gentle eyes. Most importantly, he saw the way she instinctively stood between the soldiers and the frightened pup. Not once had she tried to bargain. Not once had she asked for a reward. Everything about her spoke of one simple truth. She had protected his son because she cared. Nothing more. Kaelen finally spoke. Did you feed him? Rowan nodded nervously. It was only bread. All I had. The king looked at the tiny wolf. Its healthy breathing. Its brighter eyes. Its growing strength. Without that bread, his son might never have survived. The clearing remained silent. Every villager waited for punishment. The Alpha King did something no one expected. He bowed his head. Only slightly, but enough. Thank you. The words stunned everyone. The most powerful ruler in the kingdom. Thanking the poorest girl in the northern villages. Tears filled Rowan's eyes. No one, she whispered. No one has thanked me before. Kaelen heard those words. They settled heavily inside his heart. How many acts of kindness had this girl given without ever receiving kindness in return? The kingdom had failed someone truly good. As Rowan carefully handed the little wolf toward the king, her worn sleeve slipped slightly. Something caught Kaelen's attention. A small silver birthmark rested near her wrist. It resembled a crescent moon surrounded by tiny stars. His expression changed instantly. His eyes widened ever so slightly. Impossible. He knew that symbol. Only one family had ever carried that sacred mark. The royal bloodline of the Northern Moon. A family believed to have vanished more than 20 years ago. Before Rowan noticed his reaction, she quickly pulled her sleeve back into place. She had always considered the mark ordinary. She had no idea. It carried the weight of forgotten history. Far away, inside the magnificent royal palace, a black raven landed upon an open window. Lord Malric removed the small message tied beneath its wing. He calmly unfolded the parchment. As he read the report, his smile slowly disappeared. His eyes narrowed. A moon-shaped birthmark, he whispered. His fingers tightened around the paper. No, it cannot be. He immediately rang a small silver bell. A hooded spy entered the room. My lord. Malric's voice became cold. I want every record of that girl's life. Who raised her? Where she was born? And who her parents were? The spy nodded. And if she truly carries the mark? Malric slowly turned toward the palace window. Darkness seemed to gather around him. Then she threatens everything. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Make sure she never learns the truth. The spy disappeared into the shadows. Storm clouds once again gathered over the kingdom. A forgotten secret had awakened. And somewhere deep inside the royal archives, the past was beginning to remember Rowan. The morning after the extraordinary meeting beneath the old stone bridge, the northern village buzzed with whispers that refused to fade. Some claimed the Alpha King had shown mercy because Rowan had performed forbidden magic. Others insisted she had somehow bewitched the royal wolf. Not a single villager believed the truth. Kindness was a language they had forgotten long ago. Rowan ignored every rumor. She sat quietly outside her little cottage while the tiny silver wolf, Prince Lucian, chased falling leaves across the grass. For the first time in years, laughter escaped her lips. It was soft and brief, but it was real. Then the peaceful moment was interrupted. The sound of approaching horses echoed through the valley once again. This time there were only a few riders. At their front rode Commander Darius. He climbed down from his horse and respectfully bowed his head. Lady Rowan. She blinked in surprise. No one had ever addressed her with such respect. The Alpha King requests your presence at the royal palace. Rowan stared at him in disbelief. Me. The young prince refuses to stay away from you. Every time we try to separate him, he becomes distressed. His Majesty believes it would be best if you remained near him until he fully recovers. Rowan looked toward the little wolf. Lucian immediately ran to her side, wagging his tail as if he already understood everything. But I don't belong in a palace. Commander Darius smiled faintly. Neither did many great people before destiny found them. Rowan packed everything she owned into a single worn leather bag. There wasn't much. 2 simple dresses, a blanket patched countless times, a small wooden comb that had belonged to her mother, several bundles of dried herbs, and one faded necklace whose origin she had never known. She paused before closing the bag. Her tiny cottage had protected her through years of loneliness. Its broken walls had heard her tears. Its fireplace had warmed countless cold nights. Despite everything, had been home. She gently touched the old wooden door. I'll come back someday. Whether she believed those words, even she wasn't certain. As the royal carriage rolled away, Rowan looked back one last time. The villagers watched silently from their doorways. Some looked confused. Some looked jealous. A few looked ashamed. The girl they had treated like an outcast was leaving under royal protection. The journey lasted 2 full days. For Rowan, every mile felt like stepping into another world. The muddy roads gradually became smooth stone highways. Small cottages gave way to prosperous farms. Villages turned into bustling towns filled with colorful markets and smiling families. Everything looked brighter, healthier, kinder. Lucian never left Rowan's side. Whenever the carriage stopped, he immediately climbed into her lap, refusing to let anyone else carry him. The royal guards couldn't help smiling. Commander Darius quietly observed the growing bond. I've protected the royal family for 20 years, he admitted one evening around the campfire. I've never seen Prince Lucian trust anyone this completely. Rowan gently stroked the little wolf's silver fur. I didn't do anything special. You gave him your last meal. Darius looked into the dancing flames. Sometimes. That's the most special thing anyone can do. On the third morning, towering white walls appeared beyond the hills. Rowan's breath caught. The royal palace stood like something from an ancient dream. Its silver towers reached toward the clouds. Crystal windows sparkled beneath the morning sun. Beautiful gardens surrounded enormous marble courtyards where fountains danced beneath golden statues of legendary wolves. Royal banners fluttered proudly from every tower. Rowan had never imagined such beauty existed. As the carriage entered the palace gates, servants hurried to greet the royal guests. Noble families paused to watch. Their elegant smiles faded the moment they saw Rowan stepping from the carriage. Simple clothes, old boots, weathered hands. She didn't belong. Least, not in their eyes. The palace servants welcomed Rowan with polite bows. The nobles did not. Groups quietly gathered along the grand hallway. Their whispers followed her like shadows. She's only a village girl. How embarrassing. Why would the king invite someone like her? I heard she bewitched the prince. Look at her clothes. She doesn't even know how to bow properly. Every cruel word reached Rowan's ears. She lowered her eyes. Old memories returned. Perhaps nothing had truly changed. Poor girls remained poor. Lonely girls remained lonely. Only the walls around them became more beautiful. From the upper balcony, one man observed everything. Lord Malric, the king's trusted advisor. A calm smile rested upon his face. Exactly as he had planned. If the nobles feared Rowan, they would never accept her. And divided people were always easier to control. Later that afternoon, King Kaelen personally welcomed Rowan into the palace library. Unlike the nobles, he noticed her discomfort immediately. You don't need to fear anyone here. Rowan looked down. They already dislike me. Kaelen sighed quietly. People often fear what they don't understand. He poured warm herbal tea into 2 cups. My mother once told me something. Rowan listened carefully. The strongest rulers are never those born inside palaces. They are the ones who remember what hunger feels like. For the first time since arriving, Rowan smiled. Small smile, but genuine. Kaelen noticed. Without realizing it, his own heart became a little lighter. That evening, the palace held its annual moon flame ceremony. It was one of the oldest traditions in the kingdom. Every member of the royal family attended. Nobles filled the enormous ceremonial hall. Ancient silver pillars stretched toward a ceiling painted with stars. At the center stood an enormous crystal resting upon a marble pedestal. This relic has protected the kingdom for centuries. It only responds to true royal blood. Rowan admired its beauty from a respectful distance. She had no intention of going near it. But fate had different plans. As Lucian happily chased a glowing butterfly through the hall, Rowan hurried after him. The tiny wolf jumped onto the marble platform. Without thinking, Rowan reached out to lift him. A blinding silver light exploded throughout the hall. The entire palace froze. The crystal blazed brighter than the sun. Silver energy spiraled toward the ceiling like streams of moonlight. Ancient symbols appeared across the marble floor. The air itself seemed alive. Everyone shielded their eyes. Rowan stumbled backward in complete shock. I didn't. She couldn't finish. An elderly historian slowly rose from his chair. His hands trembled. His face had turned completely pale. I know that light. The room fell silent. He looked directly at King Kaelen. Your Majesty, it is the light of the northern bloodline. The king's expression hardened. The historian continued. 22 years ago, your younger sister disappeared during the rebellion. She carried an infant daughter. No body was ever found. The hall became deathly quiet. Every noble stared at Rowan. Every servant stopped breathing. The old man whispered words no one expected to hear. The lost princess. may still be alive. Far from the crowded ceremony, Lord Malric quietly left the hall. His calm mask had vanished. Inside his private chamber, he slammed the heavy door shut. His breathing became slow, dangerously slow. "So," he whispered, "the prophecy survived." He opened a hidden drawer and removed a black seal. Moments later, a hooded assassin entered through a secret passage. "My lord." Malric's voice carried no emotion. "The girl must never learn who she truly is." The assassin nodded. "What if the king protects her?" Malric's eyes darkened. "Then kill her before he can." Outside the palace, the moon disappeared behind black clouds. Somewhere inside the magnificent castle, a forgotten princess slept peacefully, completely unaware that before another sunrise, someone had already been paid to end her life. The days that followed the moon flame ceremony changed the atmosphere of the royal palace forever. Although the mysterious silver light had faded, no one could forget what they had witnessed. Servants whispered in quiet hallways. Nobles exchanged suspicious glances during every royal gathering. Questions spread faster than answers. Yet Rowan remained unaware of the growing storm around her. She spent most of her time with Prince Lucian. The little silver wolf refused to leave her side. He followed her through the palace gardens, curled beside her during meals, and even waited patiently outside her room each morning. If anyone tried to take him away, he would immediately run back to Rowan with joyful determination. Watching them together slowly softened the Alpha King's guarded heart. One afternoon, King Kaelen found Rowan quietly feeding injured birds near the palace gardens. Nearby servants watched in surprise as frightened animals approached her without fear. "You have a gift," Kaelen said. Rowan smiled gently. "I simply believe every living soul deserves kindness." Those simple words stayed with the king long after their conversation ended. While friendship quietly blossomed between Rowan, Lucian, and the Alpha King, darkness continued spreading through the palace. Several royal guards suddenly fell ill after drinking poisoned wine. 2 sacred wolves disappeared from the royal sanctuary during the night. Then the greatest shock came. A pouch filled with forbidden herbs was secretly hidden inside Rowan's room. The nobles immediately accused her of practicing dark magic. Voices filled the royal court. "She should be imprisoned. She has brought nothing but misfortune. She cannot be trusted." Before Rowan could defend herself, Prince Lucian stepped in front of her, growling at everyone who dared accuse the woman who had saved his life. His fierce loyalty stunned the entire court. Even the Alpha King began realizing that someone inside the palace was carefully creating chaos. Hidden among the watching nobles, Lord Malric smiled quietly. His plan was working. The kingdom had begun doubting Rowan, but he underestimated one thing. The deeper people tried to break the bond between Rowan and the royal family. The stronger that bond became, the palace no longer felt peaceful. Every hallway echoed with whispers. Every noble seemed to carry a different rumor, and every servant lowered their voice whenever Rowan passed by. Since the moon flame ceremony, the mysterious silver light had become the center of every conversation. Rowan noticed the strange looks but couldn't understand them. She had never asked for attention. She only wanted to care for Prince Lucian until he was strong enough to stand on his own again. Meanwhile, King Kaelen ordered the royal archives to be opened for the first time in decades. Dust-covered books, forgotten scrolls, and ancient family records were brought before the kingdom's oldest historians. Day after day they searched, and last, they found it. Hidden inside a sealed royal journal was the truth everyone believed had died 22 years earlier. The king's younger sister, Princess Celine, had escaped the palace during the rebellion while carrying her newborn daughter. The official records claimed both mother and child had perished, but several pages had been deliberately removed. Someone had erased history. Someone inside the palace had wanted the royal bloodline to disappear forever. The surviving symbols, the moon flame's reaction, and Rowan's crescent-shaped birthmark all pointed toward one impossible conclusion. Rowan was the missing princess, the rightful heir to the ancient Northern Moon bloodline. Before the king could announce the truth, disaster struck. 3 loyal royal ministers were found murdered inside the palace walls. Evidence quickly pointed toward a neighboring kingdom. Fear spread through the court like wildfire. Several nobles demanded immediate war. Others cried for revenge before asking questions. King Kaelen stood silently upon his throne. Something felt wrong. The attacks were too perfect, too carefully planned. Someone wanted the kingdom divided. Watching the confusion unfold from the shadows was Lord Malric. For years he had hidden behind the mask of loyalty, quietly manipulating the court while earning the king's complete trust. Now his final plan had begun. If the kingdom entered civil war, no one would have time to uncover Rowan's true identity. Outside the palace gates, frightened citizens filled the streets. Many had been injured during riots sparked by fear and false rumors. Ignoring every warning, Rowan rushed into the city to help. She knelt beside wounded children, exhausted soldiers, and frightened villagers. Without thinking, she placed both hands upon an injured young guard. Suddenly, a soft silver glow flowed from her palms. Warm light surrounded the wounded man. His pain slowly disappeared. The deep wound across his shoulder began closing before everyone's eyes. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Another injured child reached for Rowan. Again the silver light appeared. One by one she healed everyone she could. The frightened people no longer saw an outsider. They saw hope. High above the city walls, King Kaelen watched in silent amazement. Ancient legends spoke of healers blessed by the moon goddess. For centuries no one believed those stories were real. Till now. Far away, Lord Malric watched the same miracle with growing hatred. His fists tightened. "The time for hiding is over," he whispered. "If she lives, my kingdom will never be mine." The greatest battle in the kingdom's history was no longer approaching. It had already begun. Dark clouds swallowed the moon as an unnatural silence settled over the kingdom. Then, without warning, the castle bells rang. Once, then again and again. The sound echoed across the capital like a cry of desperation. Soldiers rushed through the palace gates. Servants fled into the hallways carrying frightened children. Noble families locked themselves inside their chambers as panic spread through every corner of the city. The enemy had arrived. But it was not an army from another kingdom. It was betrayal from within. Lord Malric's loyal followers had secretly opened the eastern gates under the cover of darkness. Hundreds of masked warriors poured into the capital while fires erupted across the marketplace. Within minutes, the peaceful city became a battlefield. Flames climbed into the night sky, painting the clouds red like fresh blood. The kingdom of the moon had begun to burn. King Kaelen wasted no time. Wearing his black royal armor, he mounted his powerful stallion while his enormous black wolf stood beside him, growling at the approaching invaders. His silver sword reflected the firelight as he raised it high above his head. "Protect the people." His commanding voice thundered through the city. "No child is to be left behind." The royal guards answered with a united roar before charging into battle. Steel clashed against steel. Horses galloped through burning streets. The cries of frightened civilians mixed with the sound of swords striking shields. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the Alpha King fought at the front of his army. Every strike of his blade protected another innocent life. Every step forward inspired his soldiers to keep fighting. Watching their king refuse to retreat gave them courage they never knew they possessed. Inside the palace, Commander Darius hurried toward Rowan. "You must come with me." She looked toward the burning city through the palace window. "The people need help. They need their future queen alive." Rowan shook her head. "I cannot hide while children are crying outside." Without waiting for permission, she ran toward the palace gates. Lucian followed closely behind her, refusing to leave her side. Commander Darius sighed before drawing his sword. "Then I suppose I'll have to protect both of you." Together they entered the burning streets. The sight before Rowan shattered her heart. Homes had collapsed. Families searched desperately for loved ones. Children cried beside injured parents. Smoke covered the stars. Without hesitation, Rowan transformed an abandoned temple into a place of safety. One by one, wounded civilians were carried inside. She tore pieces from her own dress to make bandages. She cleaned wounds. She comforted frightened children. She whispered words of hope to soldiers who believed they would never see another sunrise. Even in the middle of war, he chose compassion. Prince Lucian refused to remain inside the temple. Though still young, he moved fearlessly among frightened children, gently nudging them toward safety. Whenever a child cried, the little silver wolf curled beside them until they smiled again. His quiet bravery gave hope to people who had almost surrendered to despair. The soldiers began calling him the little light of the kingdom. Watching the prince comfort strangers reminded everyone why the royal family deserved to survive. As the battle raged outside, Rowan followed a wounded royal messenger into the ancient tunnels beneath the palace. The messenger had only one request. "You must see the old chamber." Moments later, he collapsed from his injuries. Inside the hidden chamber, Rowan discovered faded murals carved into the stone walls. They told a story forgotten by history. Generations ago, a powerful darkness had sworn to destroy the moon bloodline forever. That darkness could not rule openly. It corrupted trusted advisors, turned loyal friends into enemies. It destroyed kingdoms from within. Suddenly everything became clear. The rebellion that had taken her mother, her lonely childhood, Prince Lucian's disappearance, the murders inside the palace. None of it had been coincidence. Every tragedy had been carefully planned. Every step had led to this very night. Lord Malric had never wanted the throne for himself alone. He had been serving an ancient evil hidden in the shadows for decades. Rowan slowly closed her eyes. The truth weighed heavily upon her heart. She finally understood why destiny had brought her back to the palace. This war was never simply about crowns or kingdoms. It was about protecting every innocent soul who still believed kindness could overcome hatred. She looked toward the burning city above. The screams had not stopped. The fires continued spreading. The battle was far from over. Lucian gently pressed his small head against her hand. Rowan smiled through her tears. "No matter what happens, I won't let this darkness take your future." As she stepped back toward the battlefield, a faint silver light began glowing beneath her skin once again. Far away, Lord Malric sensed the awakening power. He smiled. The time has come. The final battle was no longer approaching. It had begun. The battlefield had become a sea of fire. Flames swallowed abandoned homes, while thick black smoke covered the sky, hiding both the stars and the moon. The cries of soldiers echoed across the valley as steel clashed against steel. The once beautiful capital now looked like a kingdom standing on the edge of destruction. King Kaelen stood at the front of his army, his silver sword stained with battle. His black wolf fought beside him with unmatched fury, protecting wounded warriors from wave after wave of enemies. Yet despite their courage, the royal army was slowly being pushed back. Every minute more soldiers fell. Every minute hope grew weaker. Commander Darius rode toward the king, his armor damaged and covered in blood. Silence had replaced the sounds of battle. The fires that had raged across the kingdom were finally beginning to fade, leaving behind broken walls, shattered weapons, and countless memories of those who would never return home. Victory had come, but no one celebrated. At the center of the sacred moon circle, Rowan lay completely still. Her silver hair spread across the ancient stone like flowing moonlight. The brilliant glow that had saved the kingdom had vanished from her body, leaving her pale and motionless. The moon heart had defeated the darkness, but its power had taken nearly everything from her. King Kaelen slowly knelt beside her. His trembling hands gently lifted hers. They were cold, far colder than they should have been. For the first time since becoming Alpha King, he felt completely powerless. Commander Darius quietly approached before lowering his head. The healers have done everything they can. Kaelen never looked away from Rowan. There must be another way. Darius remained silent. Even the greatest warriors had no answers. 3 days passed, then 4, then 7. Rowan never opened her eyes. The royal healers worked day and night. Ancient herbs were gathered from sacred mountains. Priests offered prayers beneath the full moon. The palace physicians tried every remedy known throughout the kingdom. Nothing changed. Every morning King Kaelen sat beside Rowan's bed. Every evening he remained there. He stopped attending royal banquets. He cancelled council meetings. Important decisions were left to Commander Darius because the king refused to leave the woman who had sacrificed herself for everyone. The palace servants quietly watched from the doorway. They had never seen their king like this. Not as a ruler. Not as a warrior. Only as a man terrified of losing the person he loved. Prince Lucian visited Rowan every single day. No one needed to remind him. He simply came. The little silver wolf climbed carefully onto the bed before curling against Rowan's side exactly as he had beneath the old stone bridge weeks earlier. Sometimes he nudged her hand with his nose. Sometimes he softly whimpered. Sometimes he simply stayed there in silence. "You promised. You said you wouldn't leave me alone." His tiny voice broke every heart inside the room. Even Commander Darius quietly turned away to hide the tears forming in his eyes. The brave prince who had comforted an entire kingdom now needed someone to comfort him. On the 9th night something extraordinary happened. As the full moon rose above the palace towers, a single wolf howl echoed through the valley. Then another. Then another. Within minutes, hundreds of wolves surrounded the royal palace. Grey wolves, white wolves, black wolves, silver wolves. Creatures from forests across the entire kingdom gathered without fear. None attacked. None growled. They sat together beneath Rowan's window, looking toward the moon. Every wolf lifted its head. A single united howl rose into the night sky. The sound was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. Carried grief, hope, love, and ancient power. The moonlight above the palace suddenly became brighter than ever before. Silver light poured through Rowan's bedroom window. The room filled with warmth. Everyone watched in stunned silence. The moon heart resting within the sacred temple awakened once again. Soft silver mist drifted through the palace until it surrounded Rowan's bed. From within that glowing light appeared graceful figures formed entirely from moonlight. The ancient moon guardians. Protectors of the royal bloodline. Their voices echoed gently through the room. "The sacrifice is unfinished." King Kaelen slowly stood. "What do you mean?" One radiant spirit looked toward Rowan. "She gave everything freely. But love cannot be completed through sacrifice alone. The moon heart never demanded her life. It sought proof. Proof that love would be returned without fear." The room became silent. Kaelen understood. The ancient magic had never been testing Rowan. It had been testing everyone else. Kaelen slowly approached the glowing moon heart. His silver eyes never left Rowan. "If my life can save hers, I give it willingly." Commander Darius stepped forward. "My king." Kaelen gently raised his hand. "No. The kingdom has already asked too much from her." He placed one hand upon the ancient crystal. Immediately brilliant silver light surrounded him. The moon guardians spoke together. "To save her, you must share your own life. You may never again possess the strength you once carried. You will forever bear her pain beside your own." Kaelen closed his eyes. Not even for a heartbeat did he hesitate. "I accept." The crystal exploded with dazzling light. Silver energy flowed from the king's heart into Rowan's. The palace shook gently beneath the ancient magic. Every wolf bowed its head. The wind became completely still. Even the stars seemed brighter. Slowly, very slowly, color returned to Rowan's face. Her breathing deepened. Her fingers moved. King Kaelen remained beside her, exhausted but hopeful. Her eyes fluttered open. Soft silver eyes met his. For several silent seconds neither of them spoke. Rowan smiled weakly. "You stayed." Kaelen gently laughed through tears. "There was never another place I wished to be." Lucian leaped happily onto the bed, covering Rowan's face with joyful licks. His excited tail knocked pillows onto the floor as laughter filled the room for the first time since the battle had ended. Commander Darius smiled. The palace servants quietly wiped away tears. Hope had returned. Later that evening the Moon Guardians appeared one final time. "The Moon Heart has accepted your choice. From this day forward, your souls shall remain forever connected." Neither Rowan nor Kaelen fully understood. Until Rowan reached for his hand. The moment their fingers touched, a gentle silver mark appeared upon both their wrists. The same crescent moon. The same ancient symbol. Not as ruler and subject. Not through duty. But through love freely given. A bond stronger than fate itself. Outside the palace, bells rang across the kingdom. The people gathered in the streets, celebrating not only the end of war, but the return of hope. Children laughed once more. Families embraced. The forest slowly came alive again. Yet one final chapter of destiny still remained. The kingdom had been saved. No, it needed a queen. Spring arrived as though the kingdom itself had awakened from a long and painful dream. The black smoke that had once covered the skies was gone. The burned villages slowly came back to life as craftsmen rebuilt broken homes, farmers returned to their fields, and children filled the streets with laughter once again. Fresh flowers bloomed where battlefields had once been stained with sorrow. The ancient forests echoed with birdsong instead of war cries. For the first time in many years, the kingdom of the moon knew peace. Everywhere Rowan walked, people greeted her with warm smiles. The same villagers who had once feared her now thanked her with tears in their eyes. She accepted every kind word with quiet humility. She never reminded anyone how they had treated her before. Because kindness never kept score. Simply kept giving. Although the palace offered her luxurious chambers filled with beautiful furniture, Rowan often slipped away into the royal gardens before sunrise. She still enjoyed gathering herbs. She still cared for injured birds whose wings had been broken. She still fed stray animals wandering near the palace gates. Many servants quietly watched her with admiration. "Your Highness, why do you still do these simple things?" Rowan smiled gently. "Because becoming important should never make us forget where we came from." The words quickly spread throughout the palace. Soon the servants no longer called her simply kind. They began calling her the Queen of Gentle Hearts. King Kaelen had spent many sleepless nights thinking about the future. The kingdom needed more than peace. Needed hope. It needed someone who understood both suffering and compassion. One morning he summoned the royal council. Nobles, generals, historians, and village elders gathered inside the great hall. Everyone wondered why they had been called. Kaelen stood before them wearing his royal armor, but his voice carried the warmth of a man rather than the authority of a king. "For generations, our kingdom believed power came from blood." He paused. "But I have learned something greater." He looked toward Rowan, who stood quietly beside Lucian. "Power without kindness creates fear. Wealth without compassion creates loneliness. A crown without sacrifice has no value." Silence filled the hall. Every eye turned toward Rowan. The king slowly descended the marble steps until he stood before her. There was no throne between them. No distance. Only honesty. He gently held Rowan's hands. "Rowan, you once gave away your last piece of bread to save someone you believed was nothing more than a starving wolf pup. You expected nothing in return. You asked for no reward. You simply chose kindness." His silver eyes met hers. "Our kingdom needs a ruler who chooses kindness before power." He slowly knelt before her. Gasps echoed throughout the great hall. No king had knelt before anyone in living memory. Will you stand beside me? Not because of your bloodline, not because of prophecy, but because you have already proven what it truly means to lead. Tears filled Rowan's eyes. She gently lifted him to his feet. Then she whispered the answer everyone had hoped to hear. Yes, I will. The great hall erupted into joyful applause. Even the proudest nobles bowed their heads in respect. Several days later, the kingdom gathered for the grand coronation. People traveled from distant villages, snowy mountains, and quiet forests. The palace courtyard overflowed with thousands of smiling faces. Silver banners danced beneath a bright blue sky. Ancient bells rang across the kingdom. Rows of royal wolves stood proudly beside the soldiers, peaceful and calm. Then Rowan appeared. She wore a flowing silver gown embroidered with tiny moonflowers. Around her neck rested the simple necklace her mother had left behind. She refused to replace it with expensive jewels. Some memories were worth more than gold. As she walked toward the royal platform, every citizen stood in respectful silence. King Kaelen waited beside the ancient moon crown. But before he reached for it, someone else stepped forward. Prince Lucian. Now stronger, taller, and filled with confidence. The young wolf carried a delicate wreath woven from white flowers and fresh olive branches. Smiling brightly, he carefully placed it upon Rowan's head. This one, he said proudly. You earned yourself. Many people wiped tears from their eyes. Only after that did King Kaelen gently place the royal crown above the flower wreath. Not replacing it, protecting it. The message was clear. Kindness would always come before power. Lord Malric and every remaining traitor were brought before the royal court. Unlike them, Rowan refused to rule through cruelty. They must answer for their crimes, she said calmly. But hatred ends only when someone chooses mercy. The guilty faced justice according to the kingdom's laws. But innocent families who had been forced into the rebellion were forgiven and given the chance to rebuild their lives. King Kaelen proudly watched Rowan speak. She had become exactly the leader the kingdom needed. Strong enough to punish evil. Wise enough to forgive those who deserved another chance. The kingdom slowly healed. Not because fear controlled it. 'Cause hope guided it. Months later, gentle rain once again fell across the royal gardens. Not the cold storm that had once carried loneliness. This rain felt peaceful. Refreshing. Rowan stood beneath the old oak tree inside the palace grounds while Lucian laughed nearby, playfully chasing butterflies with the now fully grown silver wolf who had once fit inside her arms. Watching them together made her smile. King Kaelen quietly joined her beneath the tree. Thinking about that night? He asked softly. Rowan nodded. I almost kept that bread, she admitted with a small laugh. I was so hungry. Kaelen gently took her hand. If you had, our kingdom would have lost its greatest treasure. Rain quietly dripped from the leaves above. Neither hurried to leave. Some moments deserved to last forever. Years passed. The kingdom of the moon became known throughout the world as the kingdom of compassion. Travelers crossed distant lands just to witness the remarkable peace between humans and wolves. Children grew up hearing the story of a poor village girl who had become queen not because she was born royal, but because she had refused to let hardship steal her kindness. Every year, on the anniversary of the great battle, Rowan visited the old stone bridge where everything had begun. She always carried a fresh loaf of bread. She always left half of it there. Not because she expected anyone to find it, but because she never wanted to forget the choice that had changed her life. As the sun set behind the mountains, golden light reflected across the quiet stream. Rowan smiled. She finally understood that destiny had never begun with ancient prophecies or royal blood. It had begun with one simple decision: to feed a hungry soul while she herself had almost nothing. And that single act of kindness had saved a prince, healed a king, united a kingdom, and written a story that would be remembered for generations.